Now I want to bring in my other parrot photo, my next parrot photo. If I look in my library, I see that there's the parrot movie clip that was created when I imported that in. And I want to put it on the parrot layer. So I'm going to choose parrot layer and just drag and drop it there. Now it shows up in frame 1, or keyframe 1, and I don't want it there until about keyframe 45. So if I click that and let go, to click and let go of that keyframe, I can then click and hold and drag it to keyframe 45. If I don't click and let go first, it thinks I want to select more than one layer, so I really have to do that. Another way I could do that is I can click on frame 45 of that layer and press F7. That's going to give me a blank keyframe. So a mark of change but empty, and then I'm going to drag my parrot to that layer. Notice that it didn't show up on keyframe 1 but on keyframe 45. And I'm just going to place that where I think it should be. Alright. Now I want to tween this, so click on the frames anywhere, right click, create motion tween, and I want this to last until about frame 140. So I'm going to choose frame 140, all of the frames and all of the layers, and press F5 to extend those out. And I'm going back to 140. Click that object, and then I'm going to do that F6 trick again. Press F6 to mark the location of this, the ending location. Then I'm going to go back to the beginning and change that. It's just a little easier to put it where I want it to end up rather than have to guess. So back to the beginning, and I'm just going to move that down to a lower section. And now that's rolling up. So let's test that. Got toucan coming in, and then parrot rolling up. Now it would be better if that parrot just kind of faded in. That's a real harsh change. So we're going to do that next. Alright, so to fade that in, I'm going to, much like we changed the tint of the first one of the toucan, we're just going to change the alpha of this one. So I'm going to click it, go to Style, choose Alpha, and set that alpha down to about 10 or so. And then around frame 65, that's 15 frames, I'm going to click that again and change the alpha to 100. So that should mark that change. So now it's fading in rather than just abruptly appearing. So let's test that. Yeah, it looks nice. Nice little Ken Burns transition there. Alright, the last one, you want to go ahead and do the pair of parrots and get it to that point. Then we'll talk about the last scene. So go ahead and do the final parrot picture, animate that in, and then we'll talk about the last step. For our last step, we're going to need to create a bird that's doing two things at the same time. So we need to animate two things at the same time. One is the bird flapping. The next is that bird that's flapping moving across the screen. So we could put each element on its own layer, make those changes over time, and move them across the screen. But it's much easier to contain one of those animations, and the repetitive one is generally the one that gets contained. So the repetitive one is the bird flapping, and what we're going to do is create a movie clip and just put that animation inside the movie clip. The movie clips loop by default, so as you can see, it just goes back and forth and loops. And then we're going to take that movie clip and we're going to animate that across the screen. So as you can see, two things are happening at the same time. Our contained flapping animation that just is looping, and then we're going to animate that across the screen. So that'll be our next step. Now I'm in Illustrator. Now I've opened up the bird outline file, and I suggest you do so just so you can see how it's constructed. Much like our Photoshop file, I've got each element that I want to animate. This flapping bird, I've got all three of its wings, its body, and its foot here. It's hard to see because it's set up as a silhouette. In Illustrator, if you want to see the outlines, you can go up to View, Outline, and it'll show you all the different shapes. So I want to import those into Flash so I can animate the changes on those wings so it looks like the bird is flapping. The next thing I want to do is to create that flapping bird animation. What I want to do is put that motion of its flapping its wings inside a movie clip. So what I want to do is, instead of bringing it to the stage and making it into a movie clip, I'm going to create an empty movie clip by going Insert, New Symbol, and giving it a name. Bird flying. Say OK. And so that gives me a blank movie clip. Now we're still in the movie. There's scene 1. It's just taking us to an empty movie clip that we just created, and that's inside the library. And now I'm going to import my elements in here to contain all of the bird's wings and its body, etc. Just like before, File, Import to Stage, and I'm going to choose my AI file, my Illustrator file. And similar dialog box, we are bringing in vectors, and we want to keep those if they're small, which they are, and we want to create movie clips. So to give us the ability to animate each one on their own. Wing 2. So I'm going to name each one and choose Create Movie Clip. Body. And that should import those in as movie clips and on their own layer by themselves, making it pretty efficient. This dialog box is pretty big. Here, let me make it smaller, and I'll choose OK. And that's brought that all in. Might want to look at that in outline mode. In Flash, you can do so by just clicking these little colored boxes, and that'll show us the outline.